Hello there! In lecture series 5, I will focus on the underlying principles of IAS 23 borrowing cost. So, what is borrowing cost? IAS 23 defines borrowing costs as interest and other costs incurred by an entity in connection with borrowing of funds. Borrowing costs may include the following. 1. Interest calculated using the effective interest method of IFRS 9 financial instruments. 2. Interest in respect of lease liabilities recognized in accordance with IFRS 16 leases. And 3. Exchange differences arising from foreign currency borrowings to the extent they are regarded as an adjustment to interest cost. Question: how should an entity recognize borrowing cost? There are two possible accounting treatments. That is, to recognize the borrowing cost as an expense in the profit or loss, or the other possibility is to capitalize the amount. IAS 23 stipulates borrowing costs directly attributable to the acquisition, construction, or production of a qualifying asset should be capitalized as part of the cost of the asset. Note: directly attributable are those borrowing costs that would have been avoided if the expenditure on the qualifying asset had not been made. Thus, all other borrowing costs that does not meet this condition should be recognized as an expense in the period it is incurred. What is meant by a qualifying asset? A qualifying asset is one that necessarily takes a substantial period of time to get ready for its intended use or sale. IAS 23 does not quantify the term substantial period of time. Thus, management would have to exercise judgment when determining which assets are qualifying assets, taking into account factors, amongst others, the nature of the asset. However, an asset that normally takes more than a year to be ready for use or sale would usually be a qualifying asset. It is important to note that IAS 23 does not restrict qualifying assets to only items of property, plant, or equipment. Therefore, qualifying assets may also include inventories, bearer plants, and intangible assets. An entity should commence capitalization of borrowing costs of a qualifying asset when it first meets all the following conditions. 1. Incur the expenditure for the asset. 2. Incur the borrowing costs. And 3. Undertakes the necessary activities to prepare the asset for its intended use or sale. An entity should suspend capitalization of borrowing costs of a qualifying asset during extended periods in which it suspends active development. The borrowing costs during this period are costs of holding a partially completed asset and do not qualify for capitalization and therefore should be expensed off. However, capitalization is normally not suspended during a period when active development is suspended, but an entity carries out substantial administrative or technical work during this period. Furthermore, capitalization is not suspended when temporary delay is a necessary part of the process of getting an asset ready for its intended use or sale. When should an entity cease capitalization of borrowing cost? An entity should cease capitalization of borrowing costs of a qualifying asset when substantially all the activities necessary to prepare the qualifying asset for its intended use or sale are completed. An asset is normally ready for its intended use or sale when the physical construction is complete. Please note, if construction of a qualifying asset is done in parts and each part is capable of being used while construction of the other parts continues, an entity should cease capitalization of borrowing costs on completion of substantially all activities necessary to prepare the part for its intended use or sale. Finally, we will look at total borrowing costs eligible for capitalization. This will depend on the type of borrowings undertaken by an entity. If an entity undertakes a specific borrowing, the borrowing costs eligible for capitalization should be based on the borrowing costs incurred, less any investment income from temporary investment of those borrowings. However, if an entity decides to use its general borrowings, the borrowing costs eligible for capitalization should be based on the entity's weighted average general borrowings rate. This concludes lecture series 5. In my next lecture series, I will look at IAS 20 on government grants. Till then, thank you and have a pleasant day.